Well, I'm excited to talk to you today. You are a few years older than me. You are a running coach for, 20 years? How long have you been a coach?
Yeah, I started coaching as an assistant coach at Gresham High School in 1995.
Wow.
I was doing my student teaching
Okay,
there, so, yeah.
95. And now you're at Mountainside
Yeah,
in Beaverton?
The new high school will open in the fall.
Yeah.
I'll be the first head cross-country coach there.
It's pretty exciting. We drove by there. We're coming from doing some wine tasting in McMinnville, actually, around there. And we're like, what is this? It looks futuristic.
Yeah, it's pretty
like,
massive.
And you were head coach at Linfield.
I was associate head coach there. I mean, in all, for practical purposes, I was, the head guy doing the workouts and things like that. Travis Olson was actually the head guy, and he's still there. I moved on, just wasn't able to bounce. I think you got to really be driven to do recruiting, and that wasn't my passion. So I, moved on. It was, I miss it, but the new Mountainside opportunity is pretty cool too.
Sure. So. Well, I understand you're also a bit of a party planner as well, and so I was wondering if you could give me any advice. My 40th birthday is coming up here in a little over a year. Any records that I should think about breaking when I turn 40?
Absolutely not. In fact, no. I think what you're getting at is for my 40th birthday, and I don't know if you can put the link to this.
I can totally put the link.
Because I think there's been about 500 views so far on YouTube. So we want to push that up to closer to 1,000.
Well, I've seen it twice, so that's a pretty good percentage.
But so for my 40th birthday, which was 2013 September, just trying to come up with something. My wife and I discussed, running's my passion. How can I tie that in? And you can only get so many people interested in running. Hey, let's go run 40K or whatever. Yay. So the idea was I just searched around for some records on the USATF website, and there's obscure track records for masters. And so I looked at what the record was for 20,000 meters on the track, which I thought I could
50 laps.
50 laps
for those trying to do the math at home.
And so put it all together, and had to have USATF referees there, had to have all sorts of different requirements. So I had some buddies come out to help pace me, had to have 5 starters. 3 of them had to finish. So I had to really, talk those guys.
Pretty stringent, yeah. This isn't a casual little...
No, it was serious. There were some, fees that had to be paid and whatnot. Had to have official time, Were
these all over the table fees? Any under the table?
I can't talk about that. But there were certainly some, real requirements in terms of you had to have automatic timing, and there had to be a photo of the finish, and all that had to be submitted. So anyway, along with that, 50 laps later, and an hour and 8 minutes or whatever it was.
Well, I think I wrote it down. Tell me if I wrote this. So 68:21.
That sounds about right.
Is that right?
It was a couple of back-to-back 32-minute 10Ks, which
that's pretty.
I was hoping to run a little faster.
That's pretty intense. So I'm not going to try to break your record. I will maybe train for the rest of my life and never be able to do that.
But there are others.
There are others, exactly. We were talking about it before. Maybe I'll create my own 40-year. When I turn 40, is that when you officially become a Masters, at 40?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, as far, I mean, you have the sub-Masters and whatnot, but true Masters would be, that 40th birthday there.
I don't want to be that old.
Hey, look at me.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was kind of...
Sorry.
That's what I was getting at. Like, you're an inspiration to all of us. So it's exciting. And like I said, I'm excited to talk to you today because you did a workshop when you were at Portland Running Company a couple years ago now. It's called Faster Than You.
Right.
And when I emailed you and said, hey, I would love to do an episode here for the Oregon Brew Running Series show where you talk about how do you become faster than you. And I remember you shared 5 tips that I think are applicable to people who are considering their first 5K fun run, like what we put on, or people who are, been doing this for a while, also like you and I, and, maybe they're going to try to qualify for Boston. Sure. And I thought, as a coach for as many years as you have, as a guy who's still doing it, because sometimes you see coaches who are, let's say, past their prime, and it's maybe a little bit more difficult to really get a lot of advice from them, or at least that's the way I work. I'm like, well, are you really someone who can give me advice? Have you been there? And you've got 10 plus Masters Championships titles at all different levels, and I know that you were an awesome collegiate runner, and so not only is this good advice, but you're a guy who's lived it. I'm guessing this a lot of it came from your own experience, right? That whole series.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think that the concepts should work for anybody, whatever ability level they happen to be. But as far as like where did it come from, and I'm still learning, honestly.
Right.
There's things that
Aren't we all, though?
What the heck was I thinking? I got to change that up. But yeah, hopefully, my goal, with the kids I'm coaching or the kind of sub-elite level people I'm working with the Rose City Track Club and anyone I come across is that they can learn it without doing it the hard way, without learning it the hard way, those
Right.
mistakes. So where, I glean things from my high school coach. I, snag things from the coaches I work with at the high school level, my college coach, the other people I've worked with in terms of coaching, also from other runners.
Sure.
And then, of course, the mistakes I've made along the way.
What? You haven't made mistakes.
Lots of mistakes along the way. It took me a long time to figure out fueling in the marathon, but
gosh, don't get me started on
yeah.
that.
But I think that I did things right too. But those are things I'd like to share. I think there's a I don't know if it's a Native American thing in terms of a saying or where it came from, but it's one of those kind of wise mantras. Is if you want to learn about the road ahead, ask about it from those coming back. And so those of us that have been around a while. We're those guys. I'm not going to keep getting better, but hopefully some 22-year-old can learn from. I wish I had done this differently or whatever,
Right.
and they can not have to wait till they're 38 or 40 to figure that.
So they start running.
If only I'd known. Oh.
Why didn't anyone tell me? Well, we're here to tell you.
Yeah,
we're
sure.
here to share
Hopefully
it. So
these are useful.
before we jump into that, I'm curious how you started running.
Well, that's a good question.
Did you just someone make you do it?
No.
You're just like not good at any other sports? Because that was my story. I was like,
No, I actually you get that a lot with runners coming because it's kind of like the last resort. It's
Exactly.
a no-cut sport or whatever.
exactly.
But
not
I was
big enough for football or.
I don't know that I was a great athlete, but I was always pretty solid. I mean, I was a varsity soccer player at the high school level, all conference kind of guy. And basketball was pretty good, enough to make JV.
Nice.
But I think that along the way, I kind of figured out. Even in grade school, we'd have like the marathon on field day, which is like a loop around the playground. And I would always be pretty good. It'd be like me going head to head with Larry Jessen,
Oh,
So,
Larry. Larry's still running, I think.
And we're both there in our jeans going head to head.
Nice.
But I found success there. But I found in like soccer and in basketball, the longer it went, the better I did. So if I could make this guy suffer in the second half, I could get freed for that pass or score a few more points.
Okay.
And so, but ultimately it was soccer. We had to run a 2-mile time trial every year. And if you couldn't hit whatever it was, 14 minutes or something, I don't know what it was, you couldn't even be on the varsity team.
Oh, wow.
And so I would run, and it was not a problem. And the cross-country coach at Gresham High School saw me. And he's like, hey, why don't you come out
I want to steal that kid.
why don't you come out for track? And so I was like, maybe. This was my junior year. And I was like, I'm a real soccer guy. I don't want to run around in circles. And so I contemplated it and thought about it. But then a girl who was on the track team said, hey, you should come out for track. And I was like, okay, I'm coming out for track. Sounds good. So at any rate,
Nice.
you know how that goes.
Yep.
They make the world go round.
And help you run.
That's right. So I went out, and from there, I did well. I enjoyed it, and I really liked the aspect of in soccer. There's a lot of politics. At least where I was like playing time things, or like who gets blamed for we lose 1-0, and it's the defense's fault. I'm like, hey, score some goals up there, guys.
Let's go.
But so I really liked the idea of being able to do your own thing, and if you did well, hey, you did well. If you did poorly, hey, that's also on you. I like that. And so from there, I continued on. I just did track and then did club soccer. And then my senior year, I went just straight to track. And from there, it went really well. And the rest is history. Went off to Linfield College to run, and did cross country for the first time there, and then track. And I've just stuck with it. Yeah. So.
Freshman year of college is your first time doing cross.
In fact, my first cross country race, I got disqualified.
Oh no!
So
did you spike some kid in the calf?
It's kind of a bizarre story. We were jogging the course, and a senior was leading me around, and we saw 75 to 80, 90% of the course, and then it was like kind of the finish is that way, but you'll just follow everyone else in. And so I'm like, okay. So the gun goes off when we start running, and next thing you know, I'm leading the race as a freshman. I didn't expect that. No one else did. So
it's hard.
Then it was kind of back then it wasn't just a bunch of 2K loops. It was like really, crazy through parks and stuff. And I went the wrong way. to the finish. So I led.
Bummer.
And I crossed the finish line, yeah. And then first, second, and third, we were all disqualified because those guys followed me. And so, like, fourth place, just a slow, he gets
a terribly
the win.
marked course for 3 guys to get lost.
It was, early 90s.
Heartbreaking,
It was a little chalk on the ground. I mean, you had to know your stuff,
Sure, yeah, totally.
Back in my day, you got to know.
Back before they had flags and
right.
paint and
well, I mean,
tape.
the stopwatch was hand.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I'm sure that.
Did you ever have a meet where... this was back in high school for me, where they would pull off the bottom of your bib
Sure.
and then stick it on
absolutely.
a pole
Yeah.
to kind of keep track. And
yeah.
it's about as low tech as you can get right there.
But I mean, it worked all right.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's jump into this. So this is called, I guess, Faster Than You. It's kind of five tips for becoming a better runner, whatever that means. And so I think what we'll do is we'll go through all 5 of them.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of just touch on them briefly. And obviously, this isn't meant to be all inclusive, or there's a bajillion other things, and we'll link to this in the notes if people want to get in contact with you for some more coaching or more advice. Kind of the overview. The 5 things are: think, plan, equip, train, and race. That's it. Show's over.
That's it.
Thanks for coming, guys. No, just kidding.
Thanks. It's been nice to be here.
All right. So the first thing you talk about, if you want to become a better, faster, stronger runner, is to think. Think about what? What are you talking about there? Think. How does that fit into this?
Yeah, I think it's too often folks just get out the door and get running and don't really know. It's one of those sayings like, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there, kind of, or whatever the saying is.
Yep.
But the idea is, like, what do you want? How badly do you want it? What's motivating you? And kind of a analogy or story I tell my college kids. I've heard this. The high school kids are going to hear this. But the idea is there's an athlete who goes to his coach and says, I want to win the championship. But you can put whatever you want in there. I want that Boston qualifier. I want to run a PR on the 5K. And the coach says, you don't want it bad enough. And so the athlete's puzzled and walks away, comes back and asks a number of different times. Finally, after the 5th or 6th time, the coach gives in, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to meet me at the river tomorrow morning, and we're going to talk about this. So the athlete's excited. Okay, boom. Gets there the next morning. The coach says, all right, let's see how badly you really want this. And they walk out into the water. It gets a little deeper, about up to shoulder height and whatnot. And the coach just grabs the athlete and drives him under the water and just holds him under.
Sounds like a terrible coach.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. There's too many lawsuits. But at some point, let's pretend this happened.
Yeah.
But finally, the coach lets up, and the athlete just gasping for air, just sputtering and whatnot, and says, what did you want more than anything when I had your head under the water? And the athlete says, oxygen, air, I needed to breathe. And he says, when you wanted that championship, when you want that championship as much as you wanted oxygen, then you'll get it. The idea being, you just got to really want this. I mean, particularly if you're, like us, you're, late 30s, early 40s, you got a career, you got family, you got all these things going on. And now you want to throw this other goal or this thing that you think you want. And if you aren't willing to commit to it, you're really not going to get it. You're going to be struggling to get out of bed. You're going to struggle to get out the door. Are you willing to sacrifice, coming to the pub versus you have to get your, 5-miler in? And another story I tell that ties into this, I think, pretty well is if people our age will remember the Karate Kid.
Oh, of course.
Right? So
Sweep the leg.
That's right. Daniel-san. And Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
We can do Karate Kid quotes for the rest of this.
That's right. So, but the idea is, if you remember, Daniel LaRusso gets beat up and Mr. Miyagi takes him under his wing. So he shows up the first day Daniel does, and he's ready to start training. And Mr. Miyagi asks him, are you ready to start? Are you ready to learn karate? And Daniel-san says, I guess so.
Yeah, sure.
I guess so. And so Mr. Miyagi says, come here, Daniel-san. And he says, walk right side of road, safe. Walk left side of road, safe. Walk middle road, squish like grape. He says, karate do yes, karate do no, karate do guess so, squish like grape. And I would say it's the same thing for running.
Exactly.
You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. If you kind of do it, you're going to probably end up not meeting your goals. You'll probably end up injured, unmotivated, and you may even walk away from it forever. You just because you aren't fully invested.
Right.
And I think that's the thing is you have to, do I really want this goal? It's going to take. I mean, if it's a Boston qualifier, it's a massive PR. It's not it's not easy to do.
No.
So you have to make the commitment to do that. And I think that's the thinking part is like, okay, am I ready to commit to this? What do I really want this, and what am I willing to do to get there? So.
And I love that. I think that's such a great place to start because, I mean, even if it's your goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds, like, so what is that going to take? If running is sort of the way you're going to do that, that's going to mean, getting out the door, going to bed early so you can get up before work, whatever it is, to actually get to that. And, the end goal doesn't have to be this crazy, massive stretch goal, but I love it. If you don't commit to it ahead, you're not gonna. You're never going to achieve it.
Right. I mean, it's not going to be. Running isn't easy. I mean, no matter what your goal is. I mean, if it's weight related, if it's time related, if it's a huge, Olympic
distance,
trials, if it's
whatever
it is, it's not easy.
No, I heard a great interview that Lauren Fleshman gave recently. When she decided to retire, she basically said, I wasn't willing to give up everything that it would take to get back to that level.
Right.
So family and she owns a business, like all this other stuff, and she said, like, I could probably do it, but I wasn't willing to invest, and I didn't want to, just kind of half-heartedly do this thing. So,
well, that ties in. I mean, I think that it's not to scare people away from doing this.
No, not at all.
But the idea is like, okay, if I gave up everything, I could probably get this.
Right.
I'm not willing to do that, but I think I can do this if I can still spend time with my kids. I can still do a good job at work. I can still spend time with my spouse or whatever.
Exactly.
That's realistic, and that's the thing. Maybe talk over with someone, a coach or a friend, and like what's realistic. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is you determine is realistic and you're willing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing with people who, think running is so hard that they either look at, people that are way down the road in running, like, well, I can't do that, so I'm not going to do anything. Whereas, like, just committing to getting out the door 2 times a week, other than, the 5K fun run on Saturday or whatever, I think could be a huge bonus. So,
well, and I think too, just there's your thought. Like, I think I can get out 2 days a week. Don't just like I do it helter skelter. I mean, I think if you're whatever the goal is, you figure out what you can give, and then make that a real, like, your goal, your mission statement, whatever it is. Like,
and then
I can do 2 days a week, and I can do a 5K run with the brewery race series, and I can do that.
And this will be easy. So then, Greg, this might be a good transition. So then, is this the type of situation where you think, therefore I am, or do you have to, once you think and get in the right mindset, do you have to put in place some sort of a plan?
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Thanks. Nice setup.
Is that a good number? 2 is plan. So how do you get there?
Yeah. I think put it in writing, work it out, what you need to do. And I think it needs to be something that works for you specifically. I think, sometimes, people, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with whether you just find something on the internet or whatever, maybe that's fine. Yeah. But eventually you got to dial it in. I think, I can't think of, it's one of those old time writers, I think for Runner's World, talked about us being an experiment of one. Where, you're not, I'm not you, you're not me. What works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. Mm-hmm. It might.
It probably doesn't, though.
It's a starting
given
point.
all the other life constraints, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a starting point, and I think, you've thought about what you want to do, and now, okay, how do I make that happen? So I'm going to, figure out if it's a plan online, I'm going to go look for a coach, or I'm going to talk with a buddy, or I'm going to start doing this. What does that look like? Laying out the foundations. Mm-hmm. And I think, things, I think about as when I'm writing coaching plans would be, periodization. If you have an end goal, like, you're running, you want to chase a Boston qualifier on this date.
Yes.
Well, you're going to train in a certain way here as we, at the beginning versus near the end. You're going to do different types of training. You're going to do either long runs or intervals or tempo runs, and it all fits together in a way that makes sense.
Part of the plan, yeah. Well, and I think, and I don't know if this is in this section, but I remember you talking about day in and day out, week in and week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And so, like, running isn't just something, that you commit to forever from the standpoint of, okay, I have to run at this level for the next umpteen years. But it's like little decisions every day. When I kind of decided I was going to tackle Boston again, so we have 1-year-old twin girls at home. They're amazing. They're such a gift.
Piece of cake.
And not good for running.
Yeah.
And so for me to get back into running, for me, like about 100 miles a month was always kind of my baseline. I knew if I was about there, I felt really good about, tackling some goal. And so I was way off of that, and I was like, well, how do I get there? So I created this plan of, okay, it's about 25 miles a week. Well, 25 miles a week is a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mile runs per week. And I had this plan that was very easy and attainable for me because I was like, all right, I only have to do 3 miles today, or I only have to do 4, which is much easier. And so it really helped me think about this long-term goal in a very specific way. This wasn't like a professional plan or anything like that. But I've shared that plan with many people. It's, pretty brilliant, I must say. Simple math.
Copyrighted.
Exactly. But just to say, just figure out something and then commit to it that might lead you maybe not to your ultimate goal, but sort of the next step to your goal.
Yeah, you want to have, often with goal setting, whatever it might be, you'd have, long-term and short-term.
Right.
And I think that something I used to work in the educational world, and I'm, still there sort of, but with grant writing, the term was ambitious but attainable. Ambitious but attainable. Yeah. And I think that that's a good way to think about it as you plan, your running goals or, anything in life. You don't want it to be, something totally ridiculous out there. That may be the dream goal, but you got to get closer before that, kind of.
It's got to be realistic in order to get there. I mean, if you have these crazy goals of I'm going to qualify for the Olympics in the marathon, but you've never, run a 5K in under 45 minutes, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the third one, I have a less cool segue, but is equip.
Are we going long here? Is that you're moving us along?
No, it's good. It's good. We go as long as we want. We're in charge.
No. People are clicking away
exactly
right now.
No, they're furiously taking notes.
That's right.
So equip. So no, I'm assuming that here you're talking about buying every fancy running gadget, the most expensive shoes, just going to the specialty running store and just thousands of dollars on running gear. That's what that means, right?
Yeah, right. I don't work for PRC anymore. So, but I mean, I think the beauty of our sport is, and I don't think it's wrong to buy all those things, and we can maybe talk about that in a second. But the beauty of our sport is if you can get yourself squared away in the right pair of shoes,
that's huge.
You're close to needing, that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
I think beyond that,
and maybe some shorts. I mean, Portland does have the naked bike ride. I don't think we have the naked run. Or they probably do.
I don't know. Someone out there's new idea.
Google that.
Right. Brewery Naked series.
There you go. Let's copyright.
Whatever. Maybe that happens anyway. I don't know what happens at the end of your runs. I don't know.
Not that, but maybe it could be a new.
All right.
Anyway,
moving on. But the idea is, I do think going to a specialty running shop, whether it's Portland Running Company or another one in the area, is invaluable to make sure you're in the right kind of shoes to start with, and then from there, you mentioned shorts. Running appropriate shorts or capris or whatever makes you feel good. Whether it's synthetic socks. Down the road, those things are huge. I don't even wear. I mean, cotton tees I own, but I never run in them anymore because I've become so spoiled by the high tech stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's GPS watch. Everyone's on Strava these days. I think I'm the last holdout.
I'm not either. So,
but
that's awesome.
Make sure that you've got a timepiece, because whether it's, I think it's nice with GPS technology to know, okay, I'm going on a 10-mile run. It's actually 10 miles.
Right.
I know when I got my first GPS, I had these 10-mile runs I was doing, and I was like, wait, that's 9.3. And, when you're training for a certain big goal and you're trying to hit a certain mileage, that can be a big deal. On the other hand, if you're someone that's more run by feel and for time, you can get away with the Timex you got at Walmart. It's okay. But I do think if you have the footwear, then you build from there. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning, and I don't know how far we'll go with it, but is having some sort of recovery tools or massage type tools. I think
foam rollers, trigger
absolutely.
point stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, foam rollers, trigger point being a name brand, or the stick, or Add a Day, any of those things, an orb. Getting in there.
Those are great.
So because unless you can afford a weekly massage, which I think would be best. I can't. Maybe you can. Maybe our listeners.
I can afford maybe a monthly massage while I'm training.
I would say
it's better than nothing.
I've had, with the number of years and the number of little injuries, the things that have come up, the best thing I've found for staying healthy, this is kind of tangent from the equipment, but would be a legitimate sports massage where they get in there and hammer away. But
I think going off the notes, what will help you get there? I think things like that. Would you maybe put nutrition in there as well?
Sure, absolutely.
I think equip isn't just equipment, right?
Right. I mean, kind of your support, structure maybe would be another way to look at it. Like all the things that are going to allow you to get there, but taking care of yourself just in general. So whether it's
sleeping and
paying attention to your intake, whatever it is, making sure you're eating properly, and sleep. I don't know that that kind of falls into the training area too, but in terms of equipping, if you want to go out prepared, you can't live off.
Totally need that.
Short amount of sleep.
Well, one of the things I love about running is that you can do it on so inexpensively, or you can go crazy with stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what I always tell people is just go get a comfortable pair of shoes. So that's kind of the one splurge item I would say. Spend $120 or whatever. Go get fitted at a specialty running store. Get something that works for you. Take it back in a week if you don't like it. I think all the stores, at least in Portland, have pretty generous return policies. And if you have cotton, if you've got those, big basketball shorts, that's fine if you're just trying to get out the door. But man, when I switched from the Target brand running stuff to the actual Dry Fit or whatever, I don't want to say it was a game changer, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, you'll never go back.
No.
I mean, that being said, you can get by.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Yeah. It's really nice, I think. Is the way to put it.
For years and years, being the age that we are, you're in cotton socks and you're in T-shirts that you got at some tournament or some meet, and it works fine. But once you transition, I will never go back. And it's just, in terms of the socks, it's prevents chafing and blisters, and same with the shirt, and whatnot. And I would say other things to look at if we're talking about how do I fit this into my life? How do I want to do this goal? How am I going to get it in? I'm willing to sacrifice, but I get to run it this time at night or this time in the morning. The other thing to think about, which running stores, especially shops, can help you with, would be visibility. So I think that's
blinky lights and reflective vests,
all
and
those
all that
things.
stuff,
There's all sorts of high-tech headlamps, whatever, but as long as if a car can at least have a chance to not hit you, it's helpful. They sometimes steer towards you, but that's a whole other battle.
Bunch of jerks, exactly. Right. So putting this all together then is kind of the fourth step. So we've got first think, plan, equip, and then train. That's actually where I think the hardest work comes in, right? You actually got to do this stuff. So can you talk about this generally, because it's obviously going to totally differ depending on what those goals are. So if I'm training for a Boston Marathon qualifier, it's going to look different than someone who is I just want to get out the door more than once a week and kind of do that. So how do you sort of encourage or inspire people to just stick with the rigors of training? Because like you said, running's not easy. It's oftentimes not fun. I always say, the first mile is the worst, but then after that, I never regret going out for a run. I never get back and I wish I hadn't done that today. I just feel, terrible about myself because I ran. It's okay, I'm glad I did that, even if it didn't go well. I forgot my question. So training, how do you encourage people to actually do it? What's that key? You've worked with all kinds of athletes.
Yeah, I think one, you talked about get past that first mile. If you're someone's listening or watching, are we watching?
All the above.
I don't understand this strange technology, but
this is a microphone.
What's going on? Yeah. I'm a caveman. If you are trying to get into this for the first time, or it's been a long time, I think that first mile is a good kind of mindset. But what I tell people is give it 4 to 6 weeks. I know that's a little while, but it's not going to be fun for about that long. And I know this from when I've been injured coming back. I'm this is why people don't like this.
Exactly.
That's right. But when you get in the groove, you're good to go. But I would say the number one thing in terms of training and getting to where you want to get is you have to, and this is if there was ever a secret, the secret thing. I don't know if I can
to running.
I don't know if I can tell you this in this public place, but
it's good.
It's just consistency. Yeah. You have to get out the door. And you have to do it regularly, and you have to do it over a long period of time. I mean, that may be, for you, a long period of time might be towards that goal, which is 6 months away or 3 months away, or it could be, over the course of a decade or a lifetime, you're going to be a better runner if you're, consistent. That's the only real, you can read all the stuff online, you can watch all the videos, you can go to all the gurus, and they can tell you all this stuff, but ultimately, if you aren't doing it regularly, it doesn't really matter. You can't just
absolutely.
hit and miss and do it and don't do it. You have to really commit to that. So too many people, just like you said, whether it's working at Portland Running Company, people, annually, the Hood to Coast group come in, or the Portland Marathon, we're going to do this. And, certainly with the Portland or Hood to Coast, they're always, I haven't run for X, they always, and it's kind of like, I envision it being like that car that you left parked, you live in the back, in the bushes.
Totally, yeah.
And then it sits there until you need it for the annual parade. I don't know, a good analogy or not, but you don't even start it.
Right.
And now you expect, after it's sitting there in the sun and the rain and the snow, the engine just to turn over and be back to where it was.
Tires are all flat.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where you're at if you haven't done a thing. And so I would encourage,
Right.
even if it's, Hood to Coast is the only thing you really care about, maybe you run once a week for the rest of the year, but not just starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can result in, frustration. I think injury too, because you try to come back too fast. And again, that would be, whatever I wrote down for number 2 of my, training is that staying healthy, and that's listening to your body. That's taking care with appointments with a PT or a massage therapist. It's ramping up your mileage in appropriate amounts.
Yeah.
It's, recovering after a race, enough time after your marathon or after your workout.
So key.
Whatever,
Speaking of races, this is kind of the 5th point here.
Yeah.
So we have think, plan, equip, train, and race. So 2 questions. So the race is the kind of the ultimate experience, right? It's where you can see the fruits of your labor.
Right.
So there's that side of it. But what would you say to people like, I don't want to race. I just want to kind of do this. Are there other ways to see kind of the fruits of their labor? Other ways to see like all they've been doing put in action? Maybe first talk about the racing part, because I would agree that that's the way to do it. I mean, there's nothing more motivating than paying $50 or $75 for a race entry fee, putting it on the calendar, and then, all right, we're going to do this.
I mean, I think that racing for me is, that's your train. Like for me, I always like to emphasize to the athletes, or to, when people are asking me, I'm training, which means you have a specific reason you're out there,
right?
Which is different than I'm out just running.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're training, whether that end goal is a race where you put it on display, like, hey, look, I achieved what I wanted to. I hit my PR, I hit the time. That just proves that what you've done for the last period of time was working, and the commitment and all of those sacrifices you made were worth it. And you can celebrate that, I think.
Right.
And if you miss the mark, unless I think it's easier in a shorter race to recover from and go, okay, I'll try it again.
Yeah.
Because with same with a marathon or any race, there's a lot of factors that you can't deal with. Weather, oh
man.
So.
Bathroom lines at the bathroom.
Whatever it might be, or the fueling. Maybe someone took your water bottles or whatever it happens to be. But ultimately, with the race, it's a great way to celebrate what you've done. Sure. And I think if you weren't racing, my guess would be you'd feel the same satisfaction from. Whether it's a certain amount of weight loss, or now you've got the loop that you used to do. It takes a minute less.
Right.
Well, hey, there we go.
Just feel better. So. And I think that's so much, and I want to sort of stress this point that there is this real rigorous, intense side of racing that you and I love, obviously.
Right.
But then there's other side of people that are just doing it just to get out there and just feel like, hey, this isn't so difficult, carrying the groceries up the stairs or whatever it is. But I do think there's something about a race that is, even if it's an untimed 5K fun run like we do, that, maybe do a couple of them, like, hey, this isn't as hard as it was before, and, you keep track on your own watch or whatever it is, but, maybe this is like out, instead of calling it race, it could be outcome, or like you have to have some way to measure your progress, right?
Sure.
A race is a great way to do that. If it's some other form, I think that's...
Well, you go back and in your planning phase, there had to be like an end game.
Yeah.
So I think that, whatever it is that, however you measure it, and that's the beauty of our sport, where you have races, or you have, maybe, you're going to run a portion of the Pacific Crest Trail and you did it, right? You finished it.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a
measurable
beginning and an end to every workout. There's a beginning and end of every race. And, ultimately a race is, go as fast as you can from point A to point B and beat as many people as you can. So, and I do think one other thing that in that training component, that we kind of jumped over, and I think it really helps on race day, or those when the going gets tough, is the mental side. And I think we've talked about the physical a lot. I mean, get a great coach and you follow a workout routine and you do the work, but the other side, which people, I mean, you might have someone that has all the tools and they can't figure it out on race day.
Right.
And I think that training your mind, when it gets tough, to do that, go ahead and push through it. Don't quit. Right now, like I said, I have really young guys and really young girls coming out from Mountainside High School, and we're doing this pretty easy loop. We're just doing some volunteer, optional summer training if you want to be there. And our goal right now, we're running up some steep hills out in that part of Beaverton.
Okay.
Cooper Mountain
Nice.
Nature Park is pretty hilly, and our goal is don't walk. That's it.
Wow.
Don't walk.
Slow down as much as you want, but just don't walk.
Don't walk.
Right?
Grind it out. And that some of them, we're still walking. It's only 3 miles. And I said this to them. I said, if I had offered to pay you, $1,000 or $1 million to get you to not walk, could you have done it? And I think pretty much all of you guys would have. And that tells me you could have not walked. So now you got to find a way to motivate yourself. And so whatever that is, if it's, make sure you hit that 10-minute pace on your run or whatever, you can do it. And I think that on race day, or when the rubber meets the road, on that day, you're going to put it all out there, whether
all
it's
on the line.
The mind can, if you got it in the right spot, it can force the body to do what it wants to do. Totally. Kind of the analogy, again, this would be for those folks who grew up in the 80s and 90s, but a couple of movie quotes. Princess Bride, great one, right?
One of the best movies of all time.
So you got Princess Buttercup and the Dread Pirate Roberts Wesley are heading into the fire swamp, right? And
I know.
And she says, we'll
never survive.
We'll never survive, right? And he says,
nonsense. You're only saying that because no one ever has.
Right, because no one ever has. So he's got to be, he's like the mind. He's like, hey, body, shut your yapper. We got this. We're going to make it through. Or the other one was from Lethal Weapon. You have Riggs and Murtaugh, right? And so Riggs is always ready to jump into it. Murtaugh is always like, I'm getting too old for this stuff. I can't do it. I'm getting too old. So again, you got the body's like, I don't think I can do it. And the mind is like, yeah, you can. And there's a lot of limits that we put on ourselves that are imposed, not because we can't do them, but because we think we can't do them. So I think that if you get your mind in the right place and you've got your body in the right place, boom, you got the goal, and away you go. And it's exciting, it's fun, and it's rewarding, and your friends and family are going to celebrate with you, and all those training partners. So that's what it's all about. Huge. It's pretty fun. So I really encourage people to put it on the line a little bit. And for those that are like, I just want to kind of run for fun, I think there's nothing wrong with it, but I would challenge them to think about, hey, maybe one time I'll see if I can't just go for it. And maybe it's one race a year, and they compare their times at the same 5K.
Same race, do the same, Well, and what I love about that, and I've seen this on a personal level, is when you start to put things on the line, see what you can do, all of a sudden it gives you, I think, confidence in other areas of life. Whether that's, it's your job and relationships. It's like, like for years, I thought I was, I couldn't break 4 hours in the marathon. I was like, that's my limit. And then I started training with these guys, and all of a sudden I ran a 3:19. I was like, whoa, well, what else is possible? Yeah.
Improvement.
And all of a sudden, now I've ran a 3:09, and it's totally given me a different perspective on, maybe this other stuff in life that I thought was, I'll never be able to do that. I can't do that. Maybe I need to rethink everything.
If you're disciplined, and if you can be disciplined as you plan out your running,
right, exactly.
It often translates into other areas of your life, whether it's, I don't clean my kitchen, or, whatever. I think also the whole, struggling, there's a lot of goals I haven't met, but I kept going and trying, and then you don't quit as easily when it's rough at the job, or it's rough in your family or whatever. You're like, I can push through this. So
totally. Yeah. I'm reading a book now called Grit by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. The idea is that the greatest, the people who are the most successful are the people who are the grittiest.
Sure.
Not the most talented. It's the grittiest, and the grittiest basically means this idea of, it's a matter of working hard, and you don't limit yourself I'm not smart enough or fast enough or strong enough. It's maybe I just didn't work hard enough towards this goal. And obviously, that's going to change based on what that goal is. But it's fascinating as I also have a 4-year-old son, as I'm trying to instill all these traits. And every morning when he tells me, I can't get dressed, Daddy, I was like, no, you can't. I know you can. I've seen you. So trying to sort of build that resilience at a young age. So, well, Greg, thank you. This is exciting stuff. It's also simple, but I think sometimes the best teachers just remind us of stuff that we maybe already know. And why I contacted you and why I love this is because it's just articulated in a way that I think people can understand. And again, if you're hoping to finish your 5K fun run a little faster than last time, or trying to get into Boston, or anything in between, this applies.
Yeah, I think last little comment on is, I mean, it is simple, but there's a lot of folks that they're just all over. They don't think about, I didn't hit my goal. Well, you never really thought about how you're going to get there.
Committed to that.
So
goal,
I mean, it's not like I probably didn't even come up with this. There's other people out there probably with it. It's not rocket science, but hopefully it's helpful.
It's great. Yeah. So kind of this last point. Well, so let's review. So think. So what do you want to achieve? What are you willing to give up to achieve that? Plan. So how do you actually get there? Whether that's working with a coach like yourself. Which, by the way, we didn't even talk about this yet, but so the Rose City Track Club is a new Portland-based training group that you're the head coach of.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that just for a minute
or
two?
I'll give it a plug.
Give it a plug away, man.
Yeah,
if people are curious about coaching or whatever.
Check out the website at rosecitytrack.com. But it's really, I would say I'm like the second tier behind Liz Anjos and Shasta Zielke. I probably butchered both her last names.
No, that's it. I actually interviewed Liz on this show, so I know.
Yes, Liz. I mean, I've known them, but I call them by their first names.
That's
and
good.
Tried to stay away from their last names. But they and a few others had this idea for a training group, kind of a sub-elite group, and then also community oriented to hopefully, I think at one point, they want to reach out and grow the sport, kind of grassroots, but also maybe even another Portland Marathon type in the area. Maybe we'll see.
One with a better course, maybe,
but it's it's a tough time with Portland courses. But so they have big aspirations.
Yeah.
And so they put this out there, and it's actually right now it's at 19 people.
Whoa, that's awesome.
And it happens to be almost all women, and me, which is the first time that's ever happened in my life.
There you go. Women tend to be more focused.
Maybe like and also maybe more willing to take some feedback and input. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to. This is beyond my scope in terms of psychology.
It's okay. We won't.
But
we won't go there. Then.
At any rate, the point being, if I don't know. They may be capped in terms of enrollment, but for a pretty nominal fee, you'd be a part of this. There's some community partnerships they have, so in terms of like sponsorship, free stuff, kinds of things.
PRC's on there, I think. Tracksmith.
There's a few.
I don't remember the others.
Yeah, and I think
that's cool.
They'll have some, certainly some perks in there, but the idea being work together, train together. Chase your dreams together. If you want the coaching, you can get the coaching as well. And so we'll see where it goes. It just dropped
like a month ago.
Yeah, very recently.
Yeah.
Not even that far.
It's pretty cool to be on the cutting edge of
we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be pretty neat.
In a couple of years, when you guys are crazy successful, you'll point back at this interview and say
that was the turning point. Yeah. But it's worth. I mean, again, I think it's a great example of where Liz and Shasta in particular, and myself, other people on the ground floor of it. Just the passion for running. How can we share this? How can we grow the sport? How can we get better as runners?
Sure. Yeah. I love it. So that's the planning phase. The equipping phase, we talked about the right gear and just other stuff to help you get there, which doesn't have to be crazy fancy or whatever.
No.
Training, just implementing it, and then racing or some way to sort of
putting
see
it
the
on
fruits.
display.
Yeah, putting it on display. So I guess my final question for you is, are you racing right now? Do you have anything on your calendar? What are you training for?
Well, you were talking about, making sure that, in terms of taking care of yourself as you get older. So my issues are, I think I'm still 30 years old in terms of I still try to do the same workouts, same paces and whatnot, and to a large extent I can do that, and my times are pretty good, but then I'm finding I'm not don't recover enough, or my paces on easy days, and so I've been struggling with a little injury, so I haven't run. My last race was Shamrock 8K
back in March.
And so my goal would be to be back for
which. Did you win that, by the way?
No, well, Masters maybe, but no, I was fourth in the 8K. It was pretty fast, but that's why I like the Shamrock. It's was competitive. But no, I did not win that.
Okay. Congrats.
Yeah, sorry, I can't. That doesn't tie in, making me look awesome.
That's okay.
But no, I'm just all right.
I just got 4.
Oh, dang. But Club Cross Country Nationals, I run with the Bowerman Track Club Masters. We've won 3 in a row at the club championship. So this would be 4.
Impressive.
So in December in Kentucky, with my goal to be back running by then, and I'm getting back there. I'm running, but I'm not training really right now. So,
well, Greg, thank you so much. Just shake hands around this stuff.
Yes.
Appreciate it. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, man.